And they did all this because they want to distract people from the things that are really going on. And the thing that drives me nuts is why? 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 You know, why are they doing this?
To save their own asses.
Well, the thing is
But that requires them to know what's going on and to be fully conscious of the whole situation and to be taking.
The thing is, to save humanity
action.
from this threat, themselves included, would require a series of actions that is completely opposite to what they're doing. Right? Would be about creating a sustainable format of society that could survive those types of things. That isn't so dependent on central, situations that could be just sort of like cometary impacted and boom, it's gone.
And that isn't a war itself.
I'm not even sure that they could, that their ideas about how to survive or how to, are they even feasible? How can they know where, when, how, or, that there would be an impact or that there would be an event or that there would be an earthquake or...
I don't think they do.
Because, that's not something that you can know.
I know. They may have some awareness of it, but as to the idea of them having this broad understanding of even that this kind of thing happens cyclically and that it's coming around again and they're going to save their own butts by building these underground bases and screw humanity, let them all perish in the fire from heaven. I don't think that's the case. I think, but here's the really weird thing. The weird thing is that what they're doing, just as a function, say, of psychopathy, actually ends up creating a situation where it looks like they are doing it deliberately.
Yeah, that's something I thought about too. That's another one.
It's almost like nature.
It's their nature to do what they do the way they do it, and we all assume that they know what they're doing when in fact they don't and they can't.
Well, because look at it this way. Here's an argument for it. The whole war on terror, we've just been talking about the idea of instilling fear in the population, fear of the other. Like Martha Stout says, when a leader chooses to exploit this contagion of fear, essentially, a threat of harm or death from others, when a leader chooses to exploit this contagion rather than to calm and heal it, he is engaging in what Stott calls limbic warfare. So, here's the thing. The whole war on terror, which creates fear among the population, like threat of harm.
It's a war of terror, not on terror.
Well, threat or death to Americans, to whoever this terrorist threat is targeting. That is being done, as far as I'm concerned, that's being done simply as a justification for imperial expansion, behind which is just greed and a need for power and control and domination and stuff. So that's their reason for doing it, not the idea that they're using the whole terror threat that created the terror threat and to mask the celestial threat. It's having the same result. It's having that effect, but that's not the intention.
Yeah.
The intention is just pure greed to expand empire and to control as many people as they can, and they get their jollies from killing people and blowing people up with drones and stuff like that. But I don't think there is any overarching conscious agenda among the elite to mask any potential threat from.
I think there is among some of them.
Maybe a way up high.
There is among some of them, because to me there's no other explanation for this massive underground base building activity. There's no other explanation for, say, this seed vault that they created. I mean, if some of these other scientists are correct and we are heading into an ice age, what the heck good is a seed vault in Svalbard, Norway going to be? I mean, it will be under, 6 miles of ice?
They've got the drilling machines. They can get at it.
Oh, they think they can?
I reckon they can. But even that, is, I'm sure they do know, because we have this Pentagon report that they presented to Bush in 2004 saying that basically climate change is going to just screw things up worldwide. The UK is going to be Siberian by 2020. I mean, this is all official Pentagon report to Bush, and there'll be wars for natural resources, there's already wars for natural resources, but wars for water and food. So clearly someone is thinking about that in government and knows about it. and sure, they would be taking precautions for that eventuality and doing something to save, making sure they're okay. But that still doesn't necessarily mean that they have taken action to keep the population, placated in the way that we're talking about, like that they consciously are. Because to think that way posits a really Machiavellian, broad, dastardly plan where they, do you know what I mean? That's centuries old almost,
There is no they.
Well, yeah, this is the only question.
No they.
Is there a grand conspiracy or not?
There's no grand conspiracy. I mean, these guys are a bunch of series of factions who may or may not be more or less aware on different levels of various different things and have different agendas, I mean, there is this psychopathic leader guy who just wants to rape the economy and make all of his money and do some backroom deals and get out of politics when he's done. And there does seem to be an undercurrent of maybe there's a conspiracy of some people, like I was talking about the other day, of this sort of like this group of very intelligent people who might be planning this kind of stuff, because sometimes you see that, but most of the time what you see is just chaotic, rapacious, greedy nature to politicians. They're just sort of running amok around here, and the problem is that what they do seems so consistent because they're consistently self-interested. That they always do what they do,
what they're programmed to do.
Consistently. I mean, psychopaths are consistent. If you put them in charge of an economy, what will they do? Lots of backhand dealing and, raping the economy left, right, and center. You put them in charge of the military, and all of a sudden there's, Marines peeing on dead bodies and stuff like that. And it's like, well, what did you expect when you put a psychopath in charge of those things? That's the kind of stuff that happens.
Yeah, so they just do what they do according to their nature. So if you're looking for a grand conspiracy, you'd have to look at who created psychopaths. If anybody created them. Is there someone who, you know what I mean? At that point, you've gone way beyond it.
Well, I think that nature has an ace in the hole on that one, and that is plague. Because the one thing that consistently recurs throughout history, and generally in concert with increased cometary flux, and it happens whether there are impacts or not, because if there's an increased flux, there is deposition of comet dust in the upper atmosphere, and it can take about 2 years for it to filter down to the ground, and you can have an event, and then 2 years later you can have a plague that starts. And if anybody has been reading their history and reads about, say, the Black Death or about the plague of Justinian, then they would probably be aware that you've got a 75 to 80% mortality rate. Now, if you imagine that, and of course, since it's airborne, living in an isolated place is not going to be of protection. So, the thing is once a plague like that gets started, if you imagine 80% of the population of the planet Earth, getting sick and dying within 10 to 15 days or less, you've got a really big problem on your hands. And you also have something that is introduced into the biosphere to which there is in general, no immunity. I mean, nobody is special. Being a psychopath doesn't make you immune to a plague virus.
Yeah, psychopathy is a problem with your brain.
So I think that nature does have a little bit of the upper hand on that, and we are really almost exactly now due for the next big, I would say, cosmic plague.
And I find it very interesting that it comes right at a time when this whole hystericization of global society, but in particular maybe American society, is happening, where it's really getting out of control, out of hand. There seems to be some, almost like a symbiosis between the two. I just note that it's interesting that we have this increase in fireballs and then this impactor event in Russia. And it's almost like it's needed, something needs to be done, because it really is getting out of control in the U.S. I mean, we mentioned all this hysteria around schools and kids with paper guns and stuff. And, I mean, there's also been, over the past few weeks, there's been several military drills unannounced military drills over American towns where you have helicopters and, kind of SWAT teams and stuff just ascending at night. There's one over Miami, there's one in
Texas.
There's one in Texas, there's one in California. And people just kind of wake up at night or during the day, whatever, look up and they see these Black Hawk helicopters flying around and gunfire and stuff, and they don't know what's going on, you know. But I was watching a report, and one resident of a town that this occurred over was asked what he thought about it, and he says, well, if it keeps the kids safe, you know. So I mean, when I hear the average American saying that, I mean, I can't help but think that that was by design. Because I mean, if the government wants to put a police state in place, if that's been their goal, to militarize society and create a police state, well then they're doing a pretty good job. Whether it's just a natural function of psychopathy or whether it's planned that way, it doesn't really matter. It seems to be happening, you know. And I mean, this whole business with, obviously it began with 9/11, the war on terror, and then torture, getting American people to accept the idea of torture as something fine, okay, even for innocent people with there's no evidence that they did anything wrong. Torture them anyway, just in case, to keep us safe. And now it's drones, drone strikes, and basically
how low we have gone in what? 11 years?
It's now American citizens, you know. I mean, there's this guy John Brennan, who is Obama has nominated to be the next director of the CIA, was just up in front of the Senate confirmation hearing to see whether he would be approved or not, you know. And he's basically the drone czar, or the drone assassination czar, and has been for quite a long time. And it's basically about, a lot of the discussion was about whether or not it was okay for what they say the president, but whether or not it's okay for the U.S. government or the CIA to basically decide when they can kill American citizens without any due process whatsoever. If they determine that one American citizen on their kill list, which they call a disposition, or in Orwellian speak it's called a disposition matrix, but it's basically a kill list of people drawn up by the CIA, and it includes and can include American citizens. And if someone, they say the president, but obviously Obama has no idea what's going on really, he'll just do whatever the CIA tell him to do in the sense of the information they bring. But if they decide they can kill an American citizen, then boom, that's it. No trial, no due process, nothing.
Do those people in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, in the government itself, even understand that historically speaking, whenever anyone has been given such a power, they have used it against the very people who gave them that power.
Absolutely.
Every single time. You look back at the history of ancient Athens, you look back at the history of ancient Rome, you look at the European Middle Ages, you look at Nazi Germany, you look at things that have gone on in Britain during the time of say, Elizabeth I and so forth. Every time that any group or individual has been given that kind of power to, extrajudicially murder someone, that is, to murder them without due process of law, it has always been turned on those very people who instituted the rule.
Oh, yeah.
That's an interesting thought. We have a call here. Hi, caller. What's your name and where are you from?
Hello, this is Bernard from Topanga, California.
Hey, Bernard.
Hey,
Hi.
what's up, guys?
Hi, Bernard.
Hello, from the belly of the beast, close to Los Angeles.
Cool.
Yeah.
How's that belly looking these days?
It's all right. I keep, it's okay. Not too bad,
Okay.
I can, on some level, more and more people are becoming more aware, so that's, on a positive note, despite all the drama that's going on. But I had a question and comment in regards to what you guys were saying about the recent meteor impact and what's happening.